I don't want to be a product of my environment. I want my environment to be a product of me.
From the top to the bottom, I was raised to be solid. Real at every angle, I ain't worried about the audit. Never see the hate, tunnel vision on the profit. Boss moves if I want it, best believe I cops it. Team so tough, moving silence like the mafia. Trying to get the foreign whip, probably name it Claudia. Wife rocking Tiffany, that's just another day to me. I be living lavish, that's why these haters be hating me. Stronger than I ever been, never break, never bend. God first, family second, money is like next to kin. So if you come in for me, pull the trigger, gone and shoot. Kevlar mindset, lifestyle bulletproof. Bulletproof, built tougher than your average. Ultimate hustler, I'm the total package. Bulletproof, I know you see me in your scope. I'm the captain of the ship, you just a sailor with a boat. Bulletproof, built tougher than your average. Ultimate hustler, I'm the total package. Bulletproof, I know you see me in your scope. I'm the captain of the ship, you just a sailor with a boat. Bulletproof.
I don't want to be a product of my environment. I want my environment to be a product of me. God, I love that shit. Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Michael Munsterman, and you're on the Bulletproof Mafia. And today, special guest, one of my good friends, also my future son-in-law, Dalton O'Donnell.
What is up, everybody?
What's the you've got a nickname. What is it?
I got a few nicknames.
Yeah, so slow down. What's the nickname that I would know?
I mean, are you talking about my rapper nickname?
Oh, yeah. Let's talk about that. We just went right there. Yeah, what's your rap name?
O-Drama.
O-Drama. Daltado? Is that something?
Daltodo.
Daltodo.
So that's my username for almost everything.
What's your password for everything?
Oh, something along the lines of Brooke. ...
Yeah. So Brooke's my daughter. We're going to change subjects again. Let's go back to this. O-Drama?
Yep.
Is that right?
O-Drama.
O-Drama.
Yeah.
And when you say rapper, I mean, you're no Eames.
No.
But,
you know, you get me in the right mood with the right light and the right beat, I might drop a few rhymes.
Okay,
no,
Bill, dim the lights. All right, no, we're horsing around here, but we're going to get to business. Today's episode, we're going to talk about sales and communication, and we're going to talk about what I'd like you. So here's what I do. Most people who are on the show have no idea what we're going to talk about until they hear me say it. I do that on purpose because I don't want this to be scripted BS. I want it to be true, real, raw, relevant to you, relevant to the conversation of being bulletproof, to being a part of, like, Dalton's getting ready to get indoctrinated into the mafia. When's the big day?
June 8th.
June 8th.
2019.
Oh, shit, that's coming up so fast.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've really attempted everything that I know how to do to derail this thing, so I think it's gonna happen.
It's happening. Yeah.
I've learned to catch the little flash of hate that goes through his eyes. No, I'm just kidding. No, I love this guy. It's crazy because I always expected that I would despise anyone who wanted to marry one of my daughters. But watching you love her in the way that she needs and watching you just grow into our family, like no homo, but really it's been beautiful and I love you and I'm glad you're a part of our family. So cool.
Thank you.
It's also before we talk about sales, it's another day today, right? Like special day for you.
It's my birthday.
It's your birthday. All right, Eames, get over here. Let's sing him happy birthday. No, I'm not serious. We're not doing that shit on here. Nobody wants to hear that. All right, so happy birthday, bro. That's awesome. My brother, my friend, my future son-in-law. It's cool. So what's the ride been like? Because you didn't really just marry into. You're not marrying Brooke. I mean, you moved into the family, the familia. So what's that? What's that been like coming in and working so closely with me? And look, it's okay to be real. What's that been like? What's that experience like? What if inside of working hand in hand with us inside of the game of communication and sales, because that's the subject we're going to rabbit hole down. So under that kind of contextual nature, what are your thoughts so far?
Man, it's been awesome. It was a risk, obviously, making that leap into deciding to come work with not only it was my girlfriend at the time, and then, fiance, and then work with you, my future father-in-law. It was a big risk because, a lot of people are under the stigma that, oh, you never mix family and business. It's the dumbest thing you can do in business. Never do it. Well, my gut told me the opposite and told me that it was the right move. So I knew going into it was going to be risky, but I haven't looked back. I mean, it was the best decision I've ever made in my career, in my life, because it brought me closer to your daughter, brought me closer to you, and then it is just through the roof, tremendously increased my, I would say, like, emotional intelligence. And
for sure, I've seen that.
Because you have to learn how to filter and put on the different hats, and just there's like a lot of people just can't do it. They can't separate business and life and even romance, like, all within the same, how many square, like,
right, a few thousand square feet, right. Well, so here's what I would say too. You take that romance shit and get it off my podcast. I don't want to hear any of that noise. So let's stick on topic here before you get fired.
Hear that once a day.
At least once a day, right? But you said something there, and I want to talk about. So let's talk about that in sales, because I think that that's a really powerful thing that you just started to talk about. So how do most people who are in sales positions, and if you're an entrepreneur, you're a salesperson. If you're married or in a key relationship, you're a salesperson. If you're a parent, you're a salesperson. It's funniest shit ever when somebody says to me, well, I'm not a salesperson. Oh, so you don't speak? You don't communicate? You don't try to convince people to get your way? Like, right?
That was me.
Right.
I used to despise sales. I'm never going to be a salesman, and now I love it.
Except for you're not a salesman. And this is the thing. And so I'm going to steal this from you here, because like that's a story you got to kill. You're not a salesman. You're a conveyor. Like, right? You're the conductor between a person's need and being able to fill that need. And if you step out of that idea that, hey, I'm a salesperson, then you're not. Whenever there are so many people, and this is where I was going to go with my question. So how do most salespeople, how did you operate before you came in and we had the conversations about hats? Like, tell me what you would imagine most salespeople do in the sales environment.
They talk too much. I mean, like, they're always thinking about me. Mm-hmm. How can I close this deal? How can I do this? But they don't wear the customer's hat, or the other person in the situation to solve a problem. They're more just, I don't know, it's just about me. One direction focused.
For sure. Yeah. Well, I think and where I was kind of going with that too is let's just not materialistic. Like, I believe, and so rather than me rabbit holing you here, I'll tell you what I'm thinking, and then you can kind of expand on it and see where you go from there. Most salespeople who I train, and this is kind of the differentiating factor between sales professionals and sales people. A salesperson, somebody who is trying to sell you to get their way, loses. But that's the only hat that they've ever been trained to wear. So in your case, what was like, our dealership is a little unique in that you have a one person experience when you step into our dealership as a customer, right? Mm-hmm. You from the beginning to the end. So talk about the transformation of hats inside of that experience, because I want to point out this, and you can, like, we'll talk about cars, but you could replace this with anything, right? Like, if I'm talking to my wife, I put on my husband hat. One of my daughters walks in the room, I can't talk to them the same way that I would talk to my wife. Some people do. Some people live under this false ass umbrella of, well, I am who I am. Well, no, you're not. Like, you have to be able to recognize that there needs to be a subtle shift. And people organically kind of do that in their families, but they haven't figured out how to do that professionally. Would you agree? Mm-hmm. So talk now from your experience, like somebody walks in, they shake your hand. Who are the different Daltados that they're going to meet, the O'Dramas?
Yeah. So kind of from the minute that, you know, with what I do in my career with selling cars, I wear multiple hats. But from the beginning, you instantly have to be their ally and make them feel comfortable and be their friend, because buying a car is stressful.
Right. It sucks.
Most dealerships, there's a lot of people that aren't trustworthy,
right,
because of the games and just the bull crap that goes on within dealerships. So it's instantly wearing the hat of, it's kind of hard to explain, but just making them feel comfortable.
Right.
And educating them and earning their trust and respect. And then from there, the next step typically with what we do is a lot of financing. So you're kind of putting on, you know, you're still trying to, I guess, fact find, to learn as much as you can about them, to help them out the most. And then sometimes you got to switch hats again and put the banker hat on. And so it's a cool experience, because you learn
now I'm gonna have you, I'm
all
gonna
about this person, and then are able to,
finish your thought.
Wear the different hats and ultimately come up with a problem or solve a problem.
Right. So I'm going to interrupt you because you did something there. So if you're not watching on YouTube, what Dalton just did, and this is something that I instill in all the guys that work for me, when he said you've got to take off the hat, the reason that, like, when he said that, his hand shot up. Well, he's not wearing a hat. This guy looks like Johnny Bravo. If you like, he's the dark haired. Do it. Yeah, it's really funny. But if you look at Dalton, he's a good looking guy. He's got dark hair, so that's the only thing different between Dalton and Johnny Bravo, right? Built similar, got like defined jaw structure, like good looking guy. Very similar to myself. No, I'm just kidding. No, so like one of the things, anyway, I recognize you're a good looking son of a bitch. All right. So
likewise.
Now here's the thing. I train everybody that sells inside of any organization I've ever had, that you have to recognize that through the course of your role, there are multiple hats that you wear. So whenever Dalton goes out, he goes out with an investigative hat on, right? Like, I don't want to tell you about me until I learn about you. So he puts that hat on mentally. And the customer doesn't know that Dalton's put that hat on. The customer just says, wow, this guy's really genuine. He's super interested in what I have to say. He wants to learn about me, my need, my desire, my family. Why does he care that my kids play soccer? I don't know, but I want to talk about it. And they begin to share. They begin to pour in. Like, one of the quickest things that somebody in my organization can do to really get me fired up and just like melt their faces off is whenever a customer comes in, they walk in the door, talk to one of the people on my team, and they leave. And I say to the person, what's their phone number? What's their name? Bill. What's Bill's last name? What's Bill's email? Why was Bill looking for a truck? Why did Bill take the time out of his day to pull off the highway, pull into my lot, pull into a parking spot, take his key out, shut the door, walk into an environment that most people don't enjoy, try to have a conversation with you, and now he's leaving and you can't tell me shit about him? I really need to understand why. The answer to that question is because you forgot to put your hat on, right? Mm-hmm. That particular hat.
Yeah.
Then, once you do the discovery, now you become... now your job, your role, your mission is to fill the need. Well, let's figure out what I need to do next. Now, for some people in our world, that's an A-B conversation. A, you don't need my help with financing. Cool, let's go look at vehicles and find the vehicle that fills your need. B, you come into my dealership and say, hey, I've been shot down by 6 other dealerships. They're all assholes to me. They don't treat me like I'm important. Like they just won't help me. They won't be friendly. They won't do what's right. And so my wife literally left the last place in tears. And so we say, look, rather than us dragging you all over the lot and playing the game that most places play, let's sit down with you and put on a different hat. We're going to put on our banker hat. Now, the banker hat, not quite yet. We still do some investigating, but now we use the application process, which gives us a huge advantage. Talk about the advantage, because I don't want to just grab the mic this whole time. So talk about the advantage of us getting to do a credit app with a customer, because there are a lot of people that don't understand the power of the credit application. So just like talk about that. Now, and before you do, here's the thing I would say. I'm going to ask you in a little bit, and I'm going to just pick a random part of your life that we can take this conversation we're having that you can apply it to. So you can, in the back of your mind, be thinking about where is an area of my life that I could apply this skill set to? Because I think that one thing that's super important for everybody that listens to the Bulletproof Mafia, they have to get it through their thick heads, right? That you can learn a lesson. Like I could listen to a world-class soccer player talk about the art of moving the ball down the field, and I would be able to extrapolate a business lesson from that. So the same way we might be talking about something that you're thinking, I'm never going to fill out a customer credit application at a car dealership. Cool. But it will give you a litmus to see when you're in that environment as the customer, if your salesperson actually gives a shit about you. So go ahead. Like for you, how powerful is it? And what do you do inside of the credit application? Like not too like specific, but just overall, why do we invest so much time in that? When you put on that discovery, you've got your discovery hat on, and then you've got this banker hat looming off to the, in that other hand, ready to slip on right when you need to. Well,
yeah, you can go about it two different ways. You could go about it as just a data entry. Okay, what's your name? What's your date of birth? And just type it all in. Or you can actually explore the questions to learn more about the customer to truly help them out. And I don't like I might just sound like scripted here because I've said it so much, but you truly fact find to learn as much as you can about them so you can ultimately solve their problem, help them get from A to B, whether it's in the car they want or get a better credit situation, keeping up with the Joneses. But by going through this credit app process, you truly can learn so much about the person, build that rapport,
right,
their trust, and just help them out, put them in a better position in life in general.
For sure.
But you got to have your eyes open. Like that, everything you were just saying, teeing me up for this, just made me think of the podcast about walking with your eyes open. There's so many little cues in that process that if you're just paying attention and have your eyes open and your ears open, that you can learn about this customer to then apply when you put the banker's hat on, or back whenever you're putting it,
let's find the right car,
yeah,
the sales hat,
whatever
on.
hat you're wearing.
Like at some point you have to sell.
Mm-hmm.
At some point you have to be a salesperson, but you're just a sales professional. You're a polished. It's surgical. We're not removing somebody's heart with a shotgun. We're going in with a laser.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're not removing hearts, but you get what I'm saying.
It allows you to just be more precise.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure. Cool. So now let's talk about that. So like, and I'll go just a little bit further. This is how direct it is. There's psychological cues that we can use to, like physical cues that trigger a psychological response from the people we communicate with. And if you learn how to do this intentionally in your industry, whether it's at work, whether it's at whatever, like you could, let's say, so early in my working career, I worked at a place called Walsworth Publishing. I was a desktop editor. I had a little job. I sat at a computer, blah, 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 blah. And the person next to me was like a 65-year-old woman, right? Sweet lady, but man, she just never, ever, ever shut up. And she had been there for like 30 years. So she could do the job in her sleep, and I'm having to kind of try to think. Then I had no idea how to, how to, I don't want to say shut her up, but how to say to her, hey, I can't talk right now. And so there's this really funny episode of Friends. Do you know what I'm talking about here? Like
which one?
Where
I
Ross,
haven't seen them all, but I've seen a good
okay.
amount.
So Ross has this situation where he's studying, he's preparing for something, and he needs everybody in the room to be quiet. He raises his hands up to his eyes, and it almost looks like he's like bird beaks, and he both hands go up and he points them at each other, and then he lowers them down slowly to the room to say, I need you guys to be kind of quiet. He says it one time, and he does this physical cue, and the rest of the episode trickles through. He's like, and raises the hands up and lowers them nice and easy to signify, hey, I need everybody in the room to be quiet. Back in the day, if I would have said, you know what, I really almost need to build like this invisible brick wall here between me and you, Nancy, so that I can get my job done, like she would be like, oh, okay, no problem, I'll leave you alone. And it wouldn't have hurt her feelings at all, right? Mm-hmm. But I could have done this physical movement to create an emotional or psychological response in Nancy So in the future, I'm like, Nancy, I'm stacking blocks here. You're funny. All right, I'll leave you alone. Like, it doesn't have to be rude, but we do the same thing in the process. So what happens, he goes out, he talks to a customer, they sit down, and they say, okay, well, look, he built, and he said this earlier, and this was really, really smart, inside of any game, no matter what you're doing for a hustle, what business, entrepreneurship, sales, it doesn't matter. And what you said was, I need them to know, like, and trust me. And the way you do that is by investigating more about them.
Yeah.
So in that process, he gets to know them, and he becomes, what he said earlier, their ally. He goes to bat for them with the banks to get them the best rates that he can, the best payments. But when that customer comes into the dealership, they've landed on a car, we've gotten them approved, we've done the discovery, you've been the sales professional, then the next cue that I've trained my guys to do is to say, hey, look, now I just have to tell you, I'm going to shift just a little bit here. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I want to do the best job for you that I can, but that means I'm going to have to, and they reach up with one hand and they take an invisible hat off of their head. I'm going to take off my sales hat and I've got to put on the banker hat, which means that I'm going to talk to you more about your finances and I'm going to talk to you more about the numbers. And this way, I don't have to have 3 or 4 different people come in and ruin your experience. Is that cool? And the customers are always, yeah, no, I don't want my experience ruined. Of course, yeah, I get it. And so what he just did is got permission to put into place a different personality, a necessary personality to accomplish a different goal. Because now we're talking about payments and interest and the amount that they're going to pay for the car and what we're going to give them for his trade. And he can just become much less friendly, right? Like, you're still compassionate, but you become like a banker. So do you emotionally, how long did it take? Because I already know the answer. How long did it take before you started to feel that emotional shift when you went through the process of physically flipping invisible hats and looking like it? I think your exact words to me, well, this seems kind of silly to me. Like the first couple of times, like you gave me a little pushback on the whole flopping invisible hats.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was maybe like 6 months before I could really put on that different hat and then just be very direct and black and white as a banker would and point out certain things that is almost like a reality check, but ultimately just keeps the process going, keeps them in line, keeps me in line, and allows everybody to be on the same page. If that makes sense.
You try to keep your customers in line? You already said it. It's recorded. They heard it.
Hey, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
It is for their best interest.
That's
but
right.
Some people just, it's not just in line, but just need to understand the way the system works, and America in that regards when it comes to financing. They don't get it. They just, so you got to kind of verbally, hey, this is the way it is. It's very black and white.
Well, let's just say what it is. Sometimes you got to verbally slap them.
Yes. In a nice way, in a loving way. It's for their best interest still, but
you got to do what?
Verbally slap them.
Oh, look at that. Look at that. But now, so here's why we teach this. We teach this because the customer needs to recognize that you're switching your role inside of your communication. And by doing that, what you just did was the ultimate frame inside of a sale. So this applies to absolutely any industry at all. Say, hey, look, we've had great conversation. I'm gonna have to switch hats here for a second. And the reason that I need to is because of X. And what you just said is, I want you to know I still care about you as a customer. I still care about you as a relationship. Now I need your permission to Jekyll on you and switch hats. Mm-hmm. And the logic is that it gives you permission to be more direct or to shift the conversation in the area that you need to shift it. For example, Phil, I love using Phil as an example because we have lots of conversations about, is the music industry the same as like hardcore business strategy? But Phil going out and he sends this little flyer out into the world, right? And it says, hey, I'm the one and only Eames and you need me. And here's what your audience should expect from me. And I'm a nice guy. And here's me half naked on a stage. And like, if you go to Phil's social, like he's all about the topless shirt. Like, dude weighs 165 soaking wet. And he's like all out on it. I can't do it. You're more of a man than me. All right, I'm done picking on you. But he sends out this flyer and it's very... it's called a one sheet and it's kind of pitchy. here's why you need me. I'm the best. And the first conversation Phil has with these guys, it's like, yeah, of course, I want to play your venue. This is so exciting. I can't wait to help your audience. And here's what I do. I mix, really cool music with like a really a one and only beat. Like nobody does what I do. And I plug this added layer of artistry in through kind of I'm stalling out here, but I layer in motivational content in between sets. So like, hey, I wrote this song. This is about coming out of the hood. And at the end of the day, like it's like you can get out of any situation that you're in, and then he plugs it, right? Is that pretty? Yeah, cool. And so then from there, that like he'll do that evolution 2 or 3 times. What he just did was like he just swapped hats in front of an entire audience of people. But before that ever happens,
he was selling.
Right. He has to have a conversation with the booking agent, and he needs to go from, I'm trying to sell you on why I'm great, to, okay, look, I appreciate this, but I've got to switch hats here for just 1 second, because when we were talking about the numbers, like it's about industry. I really want to be in your venue, but you have a budget. I have a minimum budget. Like for me to come in and do what I do, like I won't do it for $1,000. And whenever you can see, and sometimes, like in our environment, in the car environment, right, we have to be very loud about it. I'm going to go ahead and switch hats right about now, and here's what that's going to look like. Maybe even throw a little bit of a twang in your voice, but it's because we want to trigger that psychological response. Mm-hmm. So what happens if you could learn how to do that artfully without having, maybe it's more of a subtle gesture. For example, maybe Phil, the entire time he's talking to somebody about selling, his hands are in his pockets. This is kind of a Phil mannerism. If you communicate with him much, he'll have his hands in his pockets. You've got one that you do too. Like actually when you're most comfortable, you kind of cross your arms in front of you across your midline, and you spread your legs a little bit, and there's just a slight slouch. Did you know you do that?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, often. Now, that's when you're comfortable. The second you're uncomfortable, you always have a smile on your face, but your smile goes away first.
Oh, yeah.
And then your arms raise up to right under your pec line every single time. And then if I really make you uncomfortable, your feet come closer together. Well, if you learn how to do that strategically, you're sending a message to the people you're communicating with. So if Phil goes from hands in pocket, kind of slouch down, I want to tell you how cool my vibe is and what I do. As soon as they say, cool, let's talk numbers. If Phil would sit straight up, look him dead in the eyes, correct his posture, pull his shoulders back, and say, absolutely, let's talk about the numbers. Pull out a folder, open it up, turn around a rate sheet and say, these are the rates that I give venues that I'm interested in playing. I have another rate sheet for ones that I'm not interested, like it doubles or triples, but I really like you and I want to be a part of what you have going on here, so let's take a look at that. Now here, pulls out a pin. Here's where we're at. Here's where I think your audience is going to get the best return, X, Y, Z. He just did a hat switch without doing the hat switch. Mm-hmm. You do the, hey, yeah, we're having a simple, easy conversation to, bro, I might swing on you right now.
I wear my heart on my sleeve.
Yeah, no, but that's a superpower. So for sure. All right. So now I'm going to shut up. I want to hear from you what we're talking about here, what you're getting from it. Let's start with that. Like, what are you getting from this conversation?
Well, ultimately, first thing that I want to address is when we first were talking about sales and salesmen and all that, one thing that I'm passionate about because I lived it and went through it was of course the stigma behind sales, and that it can have a bad rep, but like Michael was saying earlier, everything is sales. And that word's been used bad because people have taken advantage of it, taken advantage of other people, but it's coming back around now. And I think in our society today with social media and just the speed that a message can be delivered across the world, there's no hiding anything. So I think salesmen and salespeople are getting a better reputation again because they have to. But I love it. I think anything you do, if you want to be successful, you have to learn how to sell and manage. And ultimately, if you do those, you could apply them to different jobs, careers, industries, etc.
For sure.
So, number one, sales and the image it has. Two, kind of just applying what you learn throughout your career in other areas, whether it's your relationships or just your health, etc. But kind of walking with your eyes open, just truly active listening to anybody and everybody so at the end of the day, you're in the best position to make a decision or to help another person or help yourself.
Ooh, hashtag active listening. I like that.
Mm-hmm. You have to act. Like there's a difference between, and I might have this mixed up, but hearing and listening.
That for
I mean,
sure.
I could hear you all day. You're talking, but if you're not truly listening and invested in every single word and invested in the tonnage and invested in the body language that's coming out of that person, then you're not listening and you're not truly, you truly don't care what they're saying. I mean,
Right.
Call it ADD or whatever. I don't believe in that.
That's horseshit.
Yeah, that's. Anyways, we could go down that rabbit hole another day. But,
No, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so now the second question that I have for you, and that's really good. So you brought some really valid points. What I would challenge, like we've been through evolutions. There are snake oil salesmen. That's kind of the first thing.
Mm-hmm.
Then the next evolution was salespeople in general. Salesmen. You're just a salesman. Oh man, nothing wants me to punch somebody in the face more than they say, "Wow, you're a really great salesman." Because I'm the first guy that's made eye contact with you and listened to what you've said in the last 12 months.
Yeah.
And you've been married for how many years? Anyway, somebody just felt some sting on the other side of this podcast. Because truth.
Yeah.
And then we call that a mic drop, M-I-K-E drop. But then the other thing that you're talking about there, and you dovetail perfect, is the way that you can apply it to other areas of your life. So let's just pick a random area of your life, and I'm not going to make this super easy on you, but how can switching hats and posturing help you in your physicality? Ooh. So while Dalton thinks about this, I'm gonna play some really good
I'm in a deep thought.
elevator music. Dun, dun,
Now,
dun,
you said in physicality.
Yes, I
Your
said
physicality.
it. Yeah, repeat the question back to buy yourself some time.
Yeah. Well, I'm a little confused on the question. I want to answer it right.
Okay, so we're talking about switching hats, switching postures. To how do we do something physically to trigger a psychological response in those around us?
Oh, so not like
Now you
fitness.
Your fitness, yeah, inside of the game of fitness for you. You could also do that. What's like? I don't want to give you an answer.
Well, the first thing I can think of right off the top of my head is if I'm, say, an owner, an entrepreneur, or I'm kind of my own boss in my own world of business.
You've got to make it rain in your world.
But I lack in my physicality and my fitness. I got to switch the hat from leader to learner and kind of humble myself and reach out, surround myself around other people that are ahead of me, learn from them, ask them questions, and, push myself kind of in the direction that they're already going to get better, to get to that next step.
Oh, that was a fucking brilliant answer, Dalton. You can do it. You tried.
I can't. Oh, man, I can't do it yet.
What would Dan Pina call you?
I just tried to cuss, and I stopped myself.
What would Dan Pina call you right now? Don't say that. You can go watch Dan Pina and see what he calls people, but I'm not going to say it. I will never say that on the air. It's a bad word.
Yeah.
All right. So here's, I guess, so when you're talking about in my world, I'm a baller, I'm a boss, I get shit done. I wear the hat of the alpha throughout my day. If I want the new car, I want the new clothes, I want the new watch, the new shoes, I'm responsible for my own income, right? Yep. That's who you were talking about.
100%.
But then you walk in the gym and you're a flubby piece of shit. Okay, you walk in there with your alpha hat on, the people who are alphas in that space will eat you alive. Like it happens to me every single morning at 6 a.m. Every single morning at CrossFit, like I'm humbled. But you're exactly right. And I wasn't even thinking about that, right? I was thinking about internally how, like the lesson that I extrapolated from what we're talking about. And look, I'm doing this process on the air because I've trained Dalton in the process of doing this process of, hey, here's this conversation. What are you getting from it? It's a really great question that you can ask yourself with any single exchange you have across any area of your life. You get in a fight with your spouse, you can walk away and think, that man is an absolute piece of XYZ, fill in the blank. I can't believe that I married him. I don't want to be married anymore. Or, and and you get over that shit, and you're just salty for 2 or 3 days. That's on you, not him. Like, he got over it about 30 seconds after you walked away, if you're like most men. Now, on the other hand, you could walk away and think this: what am I getting from this conversation? What did I just get from that fight we just had? In my house, we call that heated fellowship. But it's just turning the degrees up, but we're still the same pot. So now, once we get out of that environment, what do I get from this? A lot of times when I ask that question to myself, especially when I'm in an exchange with a significant other or someone that's close to me, I get a response back internally of maybe what it is they want. Ooh.
That's deep.
It's not what I want to hear. If I'm like, man, I'm pissed off. I worked all day and she's bitching, and my wife does not complain about this, but I know that this is a conversation that happens in other places. My wife, like, this is something that she just has, like, decided that I like not to get mad at me, and so I try harder because of it. But somebody today got bitched at because they took their pants off and left them next to the bed instead of putting them in a hamper. And so you get approached, you've worked your ass off all day, you walk in the door, your spouse says, why don't you pick your clothes up and stop being such a pig? And you see where they made the bed and they picked up everything that they did all around where your stuff was, and your stuff's still humped in a pile in the middle of the room. And instead of just bending down one more time, they decided to hold that energy to bitch at you later. You get pissed off, you get aggravated, you feel like you've been attacked, or you worked all day. I mean, do you really deserve that? Or should you have been met with a hot meal and a big hug when you walked in the door? The point is that you can choose to get triggered and want to rip her face off or rip his face off, or you can say, what am I getting from this conversation? And what you might get is that she's got a whole nother set of pressures that she's concerned with, that she's worried about. She got up before you and got the kids ready for school, made sure there was food in their bellies, made sure their clothes were clean, got them out the door, did all that shit before she left for her job, and you expected her to pick your pants up. And then all of a sudden you find out, oh, I'm kind of a dick.
Yeah, no, and there's so much I want to talk about off of everything you just went off, or everything you just said. But one thing, anytime you ever, like, that I've learned lately and from a couple books I've read, anytime you get in a fight or every time you have a breakthrough with your significant other, if you're able to look internally and take ownership of everything you did and try to just take mental note and actually remember that moving forward, I mean, it's a game changer. But one thing that Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and
it's great,
Bevan, I might have butchered their names, but it's changed my life dramatically, because it's so easy to just point the finger and look at the other person like, why don't you know this and that? But if you just take a minute to stop, think, and look inward and take ownership of everything you've done, well, the results are dramatic of what it does with that relationship. Because not only does it show, like, you point out your own flaws, like, okay, yeah, that's where if I would have done this outcome would have been different. But also it shows, I don't even know the word, but, like, you kind of become a leader doing that.
Sure.
That makes sense. Like,
well, so when you take on accountability, you're lifting a weight and putting it on your back. Mm-hmm. You are getting stronger. Your character, your emotional IQ, which you mentioned earlier, increases. Every time you point at you instead of pointing at someone else, you get stronger. And so at first it hurts, no different than lifting weights. Mm-hmm. But the more you do that, the more it spears this conversation inside of you that, holy shit, like, this is how entrepreneurs are able to carry as much stress and pressure as they do successfully. And I'm not talking about entrepreneurs. I'm talking about businessmen and women that get shit done. So to me, those people they've looked internally, like, you've heard the captain goes down with the ship. Well, that's just somebody who's spent enough time to recognize that it's my responsibility to keep the ship afloat. I can't blame it on the boat crew because they didn't do X, Y, or Z. I have to look at me. It's my fault that I put the wrong guy in the spot. It's my fault that when I interviewed him, I didn't see the weakness. It's my fault that when I saw the weakness, I didn't train them up or train them out. And so if they fail and if they fall on their knees or their face on the job or in their responsibilities, it's on me. And the more you do that, the stronger you become as a person. So look, you keep conversations like this rolling, I might delete the in-law after son-in-law eventually. This is good shit. All right, look.
It's bound to happen.
At the end of the day, I love this conversation of sales and communication. And I think that most people, they go to a place where they think that the words that come out of their mouth don't have as much weight as they actually do. Like biblically, your words are the strongest thing that you have. It's the sword for your life. You can speak creation and destruction into any given situation, which means that if you yield that sword carelessly, if you swing it in a direction that doesn't make sense, you chop down the wrong kind of trees. You create an element of destruction instead of creation. You hurt people instead of help people. Life and death lives on the tip of your tongue. But if you can learn how to execute surgically inside of communication, inside of selling, inside of your craft, inside of your key relationships, inside of the way that you talk to yourself about getting out of bed and going to the gym and doing what it is that you need to do, you'll master this thing called life. Your life will be better. Your relationships will be stronger. Like, you will be on fire for the people that you choose to let into your little mafia. So master your words, master your life. Savvy?
I'm the total package, bulletproof. I know you see me in your scope. I'm the captain of the ship. You just a sailor with a boat. Bulletproof.